question?
I didn't think it was that hard to understand. I don't know.
I missed it.
Draw a distinction between evolution, Darwinian evolution, and now we also heard the phrase neo-Darwinism. Do you see those distinctions? Do those mean something to you?
Well, there's a lot of ways to, I guess, put things in boxes. What we call evolutionary biology is composed of a huge number now of interesting testable hypotheses. And what is a theory? A theory is simply a hypothesis that has withstood so many different tests that it is rather a next layer up. It's certainly not a truth with a capital T. We have so many aspects of studying what we call evolutionary biology. My particular way of looking at it is examining the fossil record and to explicitly test ideas and hypotheses. One of the really interesting things to me, and in a major sense, one of the things that I do mostly is I study extinction. Now, it seems to me that a major test of ID, if that designer is so damn good, why is it that 99% of all species ever produced are extinct? I mean, that's really crappy design.
Yeah.
Why is it that I'm turning into such old age so fast? I mean, that's crappy design too. And I'm really pissed at the designer on that little deal. If we try to call something Darwinism, a lot of us object to that because it is really one of the ways that you can do this is stand up this sort of cardboard thing we call Darwinism, and then what the ID people try to do is knock it down. And if it's knocked down, then what's standing? Well, I mean, the ID people will tell you it's ID. But again, science is a very different thing than knocking down cardboard cutouts. I think if you look at any of the web tracking devices of science and you type in keywords and you ask how many articles, comments, references are there to any aspect of evolution, it's in the hundreds of thousands to millions. Now, you do the same thing on intelligent design in the scientific literature, and you're in the hundreds.
This is good. Steve, this is what I was trying to ask you earlier. Do you think that intelligent design has been put to the same test? You have 100 years of research and debate and questions and challenges to one theory, and you have, I don't know how much on the other side, but a decade of real work on that side? I mean, they can't be equal, can they?
Yeah, certainly this is a new theory. I mean, you know,
it's not a theory.
Is that an applause line, really? I mean, certainly it's a new theory, but the reason that we
he's allowed to call it a theory, and Peter,
we have on our website you know, a list of the peer-reviewed articles and books that have been published. There's some significant work going on here. Some of it published with mainstream university presses.
Are they in the tens, the hundreds?
In the tens.
In the tens.
Significant books. When Darwin's theory of evolution was published,
but evolution is in the millions now.
Well, but there are also accumulating anomalies for the theory that have been building up over a century. And you know, there's the same literature that discusses evolution also discusses the significant problems with it. I want to go back to the challenge that was raised. You know, are we erecting a cardboard cutout of Darwinian evolution, or is there a reason we use the term neo-Darwinism? There is. Evolution can mean many different things. I've written an essay called The Meanings of Evolution. I've identified at least 6 different meanings. Many other people who write in the area would agree. But 3 key meanings. It can mean change over time. It can mean the common ancestry, or the idea of universal common ancestry, Darwin's tree of life, picture of the history of life. And it can also mean, it can refer to a mechanism, and specifically the idea that natural selection acting on various forms of mutations is sufficient to produce the form and function that we see around us and the appearance of design. Now, when we use the term neo-Darwinism, we do so because we want to be clear about what we're challenging and what we're not. In challenging the theory of intelligent design does not challenge the first 2 meanings of evolution, change over time or the idea of common ancestry, though some of us are skeptical about universal common ancestry. But it does specifically challenge the idea that a purely undirected process, natural selection acting on random variations, or other similarly materialistic mechanisms can account for all the form that we see in the biological world. So we're not trying to be erect a stereotype of the theory and knock it down. Just the opposite. We're trying to be clear and precise about what we are critiquing and what we're not.
I saw Peter jump when you said there are people who question the universal ancestry. What goes through your head when you heard that?
Well, I personally, I have my own sense about it. I'm really interested in origin of life, not just on this planet, but on any planet. And I suspect that we're going to really understand that there are many more kinds of life that can be built. In my recent book plug moment, Life as We Do Not Know It, I really do attempt to think about, gee, if it's not DNA life, what could it be? And if it's not our kind of DNA life, and it turns out there'd be a variety of ways you can make DNA. And there's a fabulous evolutionist at University of Florida, Steve Benner, who invented a DNA that uses a different language. The language of DNA is using a series of bases to spell out, I want to use this amino acid or this amino acid to build a protein. We're all made of proteins. Well, he made a DNA that uses a different language, totally fake DNA. And he uses it to help us survive, those of us afflicted with hepatitis B. And he's a multimillionaire from this. He changed. He was God. He changed the nature of the basic stuff of life using evolutionary principles.
Brilliant design engineering.
It certainly was. And he used it to help kill off a highly undesigned but very bad bug. Thank you.
Can I say something about those bad bugs? I think
they are bad bugs.
They are bad. We agree on that. We agree on a lot. This is fun. I have a colleague, Scott Minnick, who works on pathogenic things, bad stuff. And it turns out that this flagellar motor that Mike Behe has made so much of is very important in understanding the origin of pathogenicity in some of the, like the plague and other things. And what Minnick has discovered is that that a number of these bad critters, these bad things that are excreted that cause the plague and other killer diseases, are the result of mutational degradation of a clearly aboriginal design, the original genome that builds the bacterial flagellar motor.
So what the hell was your designer thinking when he made the plague?
Well, the point is that the plague was not part of the aboriginal design. You asked a minute ago about extinctions. I mean, everything that we design, the fact that things...
Who's we? Is that the royal we?
We.
Oh, okay.
You and I are kind of pointy heads. Maybe we don't design much at all. We just talk for a living. But the point is that humans design things, and eventually they decay. And so the fact that there are extinctions or the fact that there are mutations that degrade original designs that are good but then cause harm to us is not a problem to design theory. That's something that you would expect.
Is that your answer? You know, Peter asked earlier about, you know, he feels like he's getting old, so he's angry at the designer. How do you, I mean, is that sort of the why do good things happen to bad people argument? What do you say if there is a designer, supreme designer who figured this out? How do you answer those sorts of questions that Peter raised?
The question is parasitic off of a theological assumption. That
what?
It means that...
I'm glad you said that. I don't know. Explain.
The question is parasitic off of a theological assumption. It's borrowing something from theology, namely the assumption behind the question is if there is an intelligent designer, then why isn't everything perfect? Okay.
Yeah.
Now, we're looking at this as scientists and saying, you know, there's certain key hallmarks of intelligent activity. One of them is information. One of them is the functional integration of parts that perform a function. Behe calls that irreducible complexity. So we infer to an intelligence. Now, people want to say, well, why didn't the intelligence do it this way, that way, or the other? Well, to answer that question, you get immediately into theology. If you're thinking that the designer is God. If you're thinking that the designer is not God, that it's some kind of intelligence, the identity of which we know not, then those problems don't really arise. Either way, the theologians have answers for those questions. They say, you know, God didn't see fit to make us immortal because we're prideful and we're not ready for that. That's a theological answer. In other words, whether you take a theological perspective on design or whether you just take a generic understanding of design built from analogy to our own experience as designers, we have reasons to expect that you would see evidence of design, but also evidence of decay. So the fact of extinction is I don't think, a decisive argument against design.